The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air.
Armor bearer. Psst. Armor bearer. It's me, Jonathan. Come. Let us go to the Philistine outpost on the other side. But we won't tell my father, King Saul, about this. Come. Let us go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will act in our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few.
Do all you have in mind. Go ahead. I am with you, heart and soul.
Let's go. Be careful. It's pretty steep on both sides. But here's the plan. We will cross over toward them and let them see us. Then, if they say to us, "Wait there until we come to you," we will stay where we are and not go up to them. But if they say, "Come up to us," we will climb up, because that will be our sign that the Lord has given them into our hands.
Look! The Hebrews are finally crawling out of the holes they were hiding in. Come up to us, and we'll teach you a lesson.
All right, armor bearer, climb up after me. The Lord has given them into the hand of Israel.
The Israelite army, headed by King Saul, now finds themselves in a battle with the Philistines. However, this battle has an unlikely hero and an interesting turn of events. This week we are focusing on 1 Samuel chapter 14. As always, be blessed and enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. We really appreciate everyone who tunes in each and every week. And for our brand new listeners, welcome. Hopefully you guys are blessed and enjoy. So this week we are picking up with the story of Saul again. But before that, we do the weekly thoughts, and something interesting like I saw today on Instagram. But it just kind of piqued my interest, and I guess we could talk about it a little bit. But it said, be able to discern your Judas from your Peter. Peter had a bad day. Judas had a bad heart. Peter, you can restore. Judas, you can release. And I was like, ooh, wow. That's powerful.
And that's true.
It's definitely true. It's definitely true. I mean, in the power of discernment, man, no one who's around you and just knowing, you can't know the state of people's heart, but to me, it's it comes with discerning who is in your circle, discerning the ones who are actually following God, discerning, because again, I guess the importance of this, right? What I'm getting at, both of these people were Jesus' disciples. Judas and Peter were there, seeing Jesus' miracles after day, his blessings. In a weird way, Judas actually wanted the kingdom of God to come about, but he just didn't understand. His heart was completely in the wrong place. Peter had a bad day because, he cut off someone's hair. Jesus had to put it back on, denied Jesus 3 times. But it was really a bad day.
Peter's cranky, man. He ain't getting a lot of sleep that night.
It was a very long night. It was a very long night, but discernment is so key because a powerful thing that isn't even related to this, but to me it's even discerning when you have voices that you hear, and discerning what is the voice of the Spirit and what's the voice of some being that's trying to get you to do wrong. Because it's being those moments where you have a decision to make. And if you're quiet, you actually could discern. If you're quiet and no meditating, and even say you got to be like super spiritual about it, but it's like if you literally could hear the Holy Spirit guiding you and directing you to do things. And people say, "Oh yeah, no, this idea just came to me." It's really the Spirit guiding you and directing your thoughts to do certain things, and that discernment is key. And discernment is actually going to tie into our episode today. But you got any thoughts on it before we even proceed?
Bro, Peter fascinates me because Peter, somewhat like Saul, because Peter was impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get that from Peter, like Jesus. I see tone matters, bro. I can't even imagine what these people tone was like for real. But Jesus would be trying to show Peter, bro, yeah, this about to happen. And Peter get excited. Oh no, you're not about to die. I ain't letting nobody kill you or whatever. And what Jesus had to do, get thee behind me, Satan. You ruining the moment right now. I trying to show you such an important role in the reason why I'm actually here. You ain't listening, you just reacting. You feel me? And so in the spirit of discernment, we might be Peters. We might be quick to talk, quick to react. Our heart might be, quote unquote, in the right place, but we are doing the wrong things because we might have deep-rooted selfish ambitions, that we believe that is on behalf of God, but it actually obstructs the movement of God. So if Peter was trying to protect Jesus from being killed, but if Jesus didn't get killed or didn't die for our sins, none of us would be saved to go to heaven. You see the conflict there. Peter was essentially working for the devil in that way if he would have tried to obstruct that, Mm-hmm. And lastly, Jesus' last night alive, Jesus was trying to tell Peter, bro, dog, like you my boy, but you about to deny me 3 times. And what do? He deny you not. No, Lord, I love you. I'll die with you. This everything Peter's saying, but Peter don't even discern what's happening right now. God in his infinite wisdom is telling you your flaws. Receive that. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like in the spirit of discernment, it's a matter of us being able to discern what our rebukes are and the ways that we are wrong and the ways that we should improve as it relates to God. And instead of denying that, you know what I'm saying? We should also have the discernment to accept that and work towards changing that through Jesus.
And what you said right now is just so impactful. Even like with Peter, because when you think about Peter, like you said, like how God showed him his flaws and he was even denying that. Because I'm like, it's so funny that he didn't even realize he was denying Jesus until the prophecy essentially was fulfilled. Because you would think after one time he might have caught himself, like, oh, that was one time. You ain't gonna catch me. He wasn't even thinking about it. He was just essentially caught in the moment. It happened a second time. Didn't even catch it. Again, still caught up in the moment what's happening. I mean, come on, the guy you spent the last 3 years was about to get crucified. But again, no one really wants to die. It is what it is. I mean, we can have a whole debate on that later. But and so again, you scared, you in the middle of this angry crowd. You're like, bro, I ain't trying to die right now. No, I don't know that Jesus. Might even use some more flavorful, colorful language. Depend on how you want, spice that sentence up. Mm-hmm. Still didn't catch that. The third time, did it. Then he hears the rooster crow, and he's like, oh, snap. Because at that point, he associated the rooster crowing with what he just did back to what Jesus said before. And now you're like, whoa. But again, it still shows sometimes, to your point, God reveals things to us that we don't even go back to saying, and this is a point you have made repeatedly on this podcast. Everyone is saying, oh, I know my heart. No, you really don't. God knows your heart. You think you know your heart, but when times get rough, when your back is against the wall, the true character that you've been developing all this time, that you've been suppressing in the presence of God, actually comes out. And now you really could see what's on your heart. And now you can see what was on Peter's heart in that moment. A heart of denial, a heart I was outwardly saying I would die for you. But now when my back's against the wall, bro, I don't even know you. And that's powerful because it's really powerful. And so, again, go for it.
This ain't a Passover episode, bro. But consider this.
I was just saying, yo, some of the stuff we're probably going to repeat next month.
Oh yeah, because we so close. We
are so close. I was just thinking about it. I was like, yo, and not even next month. Quite literally, depending on when this episode comes, it's coming out in April.
Oh man.
So yeah, we're gonna be talking about this next week, guys. So this is a preview.
I only can say this in the event that I don't remember to bring this up, bro. Imagine you and I, right? These boys, regardless of what your role is in the gospel and in the kingdom, some people trying to kill you, bro. I literally about to kill a police, bro, an official for you, right? That's how protective I am for you, right? But then when I see what you got going on, the cut up that you told me, right? And they ask me, hey, ain't you his own boy? I would draw, no, I'm my boy. How would you feel, bro?
Bro, I'd be betrayed.
I would just feel, bro, exactly. So it's like, we know Judas betrayed Jesus, but so did Peter. Like, this the same boy who is just trying to kill for you. This is the same boy who keeps saying he would kill for you. He'll die for you. And that's how you acting? Like, and I know Peter felt terrible. You understand what I'm saying? But I just want to say, bro, Jesus shows us, bro, how to love. How to love. I know this was about discernment, but Jesus ended up forgiving him. You know, they end up speaking again. You understand? He ended up having he gave Peter a special task to feed my lambs, or I think that's what he said. And like, bro, like to me, that's just amazing, because like, I feel like the only way we can honestly say we know our heart is if we accept that every inclination of the heart is evil. If we don't feel that way about our heart, then we don't know our heart, because that's how God describes human beings, you know, and we born in sin. Like, there's no one good but God. You understand what I'm saying? And so because of that, we have to understand that we are all susceptible to having quote unquote bad days in the same way that Peter have bad days. You might be sitting there listening to this and saying, I would have never done what Peter do. But you know who you sound like? Peter was saying, I'd never do that. You know what I mean? So like, we just have to understand the web we weave when we are ensnared by sin, when we're not prayed up. And I have more to say, but we can get to that on the Passover,
so
the resurrection.
That episode will come about in like 2 more weeks. So stay tuned. And if you haven't, check out our previous episode on, you know, the Passover, the whole crucifixion of Christ. You know, go look at those hidden gems.
Good stuff.
So yeah, so now last week we covered, as my screen disappeared, we covered I was about to say Genesis. 1 Samuel chapter 13. So we dealt with Saul's unfortunate sacrifice. In that episode, we saw how Saul, I mean, for those who don't know, Saul was the first king of Israel. He was anointed because Israel wanted a king. Samuel, who the book that we're currently reading is named after, was the high priest at the time, who was also the prophet and the judge. And people cried out asking for a king, even though the king was God. God said, you know what, Samuel, this is nothing against you. They're actually rejecting me as the heavenly king. But you know what? Give them a king. And Saul was anointed as the first king. He was ahead above everyone else. And he actually started out pretty good. But last week, I mean, definitely check out that episode if you haven't. If you listen to this episode just to get the background, I really encourage you to go back and listen to that episode to see how Saul got to this point. Because Saul, and again, depends on how you look at it, but like in a moment of weakness, in a moment of self-righteousness, decided to sacrifice animals. Well, you know, to offer a sacrifice for the people. And Saul wasn't a priest, so he had no qualifications or merit in doing so. And he was instructed to wait on Samuel, and it was the day that Samuel was supposed to arrive. And Samuel, let's just say, was running late, but the day was not over yet. And Saul just said, you know what? The people are scattering away. I'm going to offer this sacrifice. But we see Samuel came immediately after Saul was done and asked him, what have you done? And Saul replied, tried to give excuses for this. And Samuel told him, you've done a foolish thing. You did not keep the commandments of the Lord. And if you had, he would establish a kingdom over Israel essentially for like ever. Like, it would be like normally how we think of kings. Like after the king dies, their son or their heir rules the throne. But God said, this isn't happening for your kingdom. And so now your kingdom will not endure. And the Lord will, seek out someone after his own heart because you have not kept the Lord's command. And so And then, so now we see that Israel was without weapons. So the people who actually had weapons were Saul and Jonathan, his son. And now the last verse we didn't read of verse 13 of chapter 13 was verse 23. And now we see the task of the Philistines had gone out past Michmash. And so that brings us to chapter 14. So in 1 Samuel 14, we see on one day, Jonathan, the son of Saul, said to his young armor bearer, "Come, let's go over to the Philistine outpost on the other side." But he did not tell his father. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to just point out some differences that we see. So he did not tell his father. Saul was staying on the outskirts of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree in Migron. With him were about 600 men, among whom was Ahijah, who was wearing an ephod. So we're seeing Ahijah was the priest. He was the son of Ichabod, brother of Ahitub, son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh. No one was aware that Jonathan had left. I see you have something to say. Go for it. I'm gonna let you kick it off.
Yes. So this time reading this, and I have read this chapter. This chapters 14 and 15 may be the chapters that I've read the most out of the book of Samuel. I may be wrong, but I think it is, because I just truly love chapter 15 because it's a very necessary word. Yeah, right.
You know
what line is? Yeah. It's a very necessary word. But I was reading this today, pretty tired, long day at work, and I struggling to stay awake. And I have to keep starting from one, because every time I get to verse 4, my mind already wondering. But I get to verse 4, I get to verse 3, and I'm like, bro, why are we paying so much attention to this priest? Okay, we get it. Just give me the facts, bro. There was a priest there. Why are you describing what he wearing? You know what I mean? And until I really focused, and I was like, and then I remember you had said, I think your grandmother said, I can't remember which family member that says that everything is in the Bible for a reason.
For a reason, yeah.
So every time I read something that is kind of perplexing to me, or something that I feel like, why is this here? I start to think more intuitively, like, there's a reason for this. Like, what is the possible reason? And so with that mindset, I'm like, wow, who are they trying to highlight right now? They're trying to highlight the line of Eli. The book of Samuel started with Eli. Eli was probably the protagonist for like the first two, or maybe not. I guess you could say Hannah or whatever. But anyway, Eli was a main character, and we soon found out that his sons were evil. They were doing the work of the Lord. They were all priests. Eli was the high priest, and that resulted in their line being cursed. Right?
Wiped out.
Completely wiped out. The Lord did not have... Anyway, the Lord cursed them, and you can read chapter, I think that might have been chapter 3 or 4.
3 and 4, yeah.
But with that being said, I'm like, this is very interesting, and now it piques my interest that Saul has near him the son of Eli, the descendant of Eli, probably the grandson of Eli, as a priest still, wearing an ephod. And I know that the curse was saying that these people will die in the prime of their life, and I believe in that curse, and we've seen it happen already with some of Eli's descendants. And so obviously this would mean that he's not in the prime of his life yet. But I'm just like, where Samuel is and why you got this guy around. So that's one thing that kind of was like a seed in my mind. Like, why are we pointing out this priest when we pointing out this whole line? Who his mommy, who his daddy is, who his uncle is, right? But not his mommy. Anyway, his daddy and his uncle. But we had Samuel just in the last chapter. So I just wanted to put a pin there. You have anything on that?
Yeah, and then like again, if you go back to Ichabod's name, it means the glory has departed. So even going like piggybacking off of Kazi's whole point, we look at it. The priest that we know is the top guy, the main priest in this whole book right now. The one who is definitely inspired by God, the one who has already recently rebuked, this just even come to me, the one who's just recently rebuked Saul. Think about it now. In last chapter, Saul was rebuked by Samuel. So now if you look at this chapter 2, it almost makes sense why he didn't even try to call Samuel for this battle. Sorry, this just even come to me. So now, but now if you look at the priest who he calls, Ichabod's name means the glorious departed. So now we see, instead of being with a priest who is already been like, who we know for sure is following and listening to God's word, you get a priest from a family line who God's already done with, but for some reason still carrying out priestly duties, but clearly the glory has already departed from them. And the glory has already departed from Israel, and you already know your kingdom's going to be taken away from you. So you're like, you know what? In a sense, forget Samuel. Let me go with this priest who essentially I might have in my back pocket. Like, it might not even, we know nothing good was coming from that line. And so
that's the point I was going to make. And we have evidence of that. We have evidence of that as the story progresses. And so that's already what I'm thinking. I'm like, why this specific, bro? If you want to do something stupid right now, that's what I'm thinking, bro. Like, just to be completely frank, I'm thinking that Saul has in his intentions to do something stupid or to do something that would not be approved by God or would not be approved by Samuel. And you can't call Samuel to do that. And you can't call a lot of priests ain't gonna do that if they real priests and they fear God. You gotta call a specific person who you know for sure have a history of doing these things. Foolishness, right? So, and based from chapter 3, I was like, from verse 3, I was like, and obviously I already was familiar with the story, but I'm like, yes, that makes sense why they pointed out who Saul called in this very moment. This the priest I want beside me, because when I on the stupidness, he right there with me. Two of us could be on stupidness together. And ain't no one stopping us. You know what I mean?
Misery love company. Another thing to point out too is that we see from verse 1 to 3, we already have 2 instances of it saying that Jonathan did not tell anyone he was going. We see in verse 1, he said he did not tell his father that he was going. And then we see in verse 3, they say, but no one was aware Jonathan had left. And these going to come into play pretty soon. So now in verse 4, we see on each side of the pass that Jonathan entered and intended to cross to reach the Philistine outpost was a cliff. One was called Bozez, and the other was Sina. One cliff stood to the north toward Michmash, the other to the south toward Geba. Jonathan said to his young armor-bearer, come, let's go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. So now look at this, right? We see Saul sitting under a pomegranate tree with his makeshift priest, right? Ain't really consulting God or nothing. But we see his son, however old his son might be at this point in time. The jury's still out in that. But we have his son who is saying to his armor bearer, let's go. Me and you, let's go. God, it don't matter how much people God need. If God wants to save us, he's going to save us, whether it's just by me or you or we have this whole army. The army clearly ain't doing nothing. So let's go over here and take these Philistines, just me and you. And it shows Jonathan's faith in God. And so we know, we shows Jonathan's faith in God, and also shows the armor bearer's faith that, I trust God, but I also trust Jonathan's leadership to lead me into battle. Because again, if me and you go, I got to be like, well, for sure, I hope Kazi got my back as we good.
Well, but we would have to be on one accord for us to say, it's a battle going on, right? My father is nervous. All of the people was trembling. They was fearful. Just a chapter before, we don't know how much days I went by, but this is in the same time frame. Everybody's scared. The grown men scared. The king who y'all cry for, he's hesitant. But me and you going on this mission alone, we got to be on one accord, bro. You understand? I can't see nobody saying, if you feel like this, if you scared like everybody else, I can't see you going with me. You would try to discourage me. No, guys, don't do that, bro. You ain't gonna follow me. You ain't gonna carry me to my dad, bro. I think we can do this one. You understand? But it goes to show that they both had a sense of faith in God. And the armor bearer was young. He say his young armor bearer, and to me that makes me feel like Jonathan was older. I wish I knew how old he was, but anyway, I said that last week. I should have done some more research, but anyway, but if Jonathan is aware See, because that's the thing. Last week, we was arguing awareness. Saul should know because he's the king. Bro, Jonathan knows for sure. Jonathan knows of what God has done with many and few. And he realized that the X factor ain't the people. The X factor is the God. God is the victory, period. And so where there's many or few, he will save us, And Jonathan have that type of faith. But somehow his old man sitting under the pomegranate tree ain't consider this at all. So we know there's willful ignorance at this point on Saul's behalf.
And that's so powerful too, because what do I always keep on saying, bro? Like, how could y'all not know the stories? And clearly Jonathan know the stories. Because if you saying by few or many, to me it just brings back to my head the story of Gideon. Like, God used 300 men, the original 300, to go conquer. You know what I'm saying? So it's like clearly Jonathan knew the stories and had faith in the stories. Not more importantly, had faith in God, because God is the thread that sews all these stories together. Now, with his faith, from the stories he heard, his faith in God, the things he's probably seeing God done with his own eyes, he's like, I can speak these words in confidence. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving. And that's powerful. That's a bold statement. Nothing can get in God's way from saving, whether it be by many or by few. Like, that's a powerful statement. And it takes faith to say that too.
That's crazy. Takes conviction. Faith, bro. Yes, bro, because you could die. This ain't something like, I have faith that God will pay my tuition or pay my rent or something like that. No, bro, if you wrong, you will be dead. You understand what I'm saying? So that's faith, bro. That's faith, dog. And
it's so crazy because, again, he ain't tell nobody. So it ain't like, hey, me and my armor bearer going to go in there and be a decoy. Y'all sit in ambush and wait. We can give y'all a signal when it's safe. Ain't none of that. Hey, me and you be going. We ain't telling no one. We ain't looking for no personal glory. This God's battle and it's in God's hands.
And let me show you how serious these people was, bro. They had to travel on a path with cliffs on both sides. So y'all could die before y'all even get there. This is a dangerous path to even travel on to begin with. You know what I mean? Like cliffs on both sides. When I was reading that just now, I was like, it's a little dangerous, bro. If one of them to run up on you and just push you, what you can do, bro? Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So you see Jonathan, based on verse 7, do all that you have in mind, his armor bearer said. Go ahead. I am with you, heart and soul. Again, speaking of armor bearer's faith, he said, you go, I going. And I with you every step of the way. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to question my loyalty. You ain't got to question I got your back. I am with you. Jonathan said, come on. And then was even more powerful with that too, right? Think about what we also read in chapter 13. The only people who have swords is Saul and Jonathan.
Yeah.
I go into war with you, and I ain't got much, buddy. I might have a slingshot.
He bearing the armor, bro. I only holding your equipment. Quite literally. All right, so Jonathan said,
come on then. We'll cross towards them and let them see us. If they say to us, wait there until we come to you, we will stay where we are and not go up to them. But if they say, come up to us, we will climb up, because that will be our sign that the Lord has given them into our hands. What do you think about that?
I'm wondering, I when stuff like this happen in the Bible, I believe it's all right. So with the Ark of the Covenant, when the Philistines was returning the Ark of the Covenant, they make it impossible for the cows to travel back to the Israelite camps. And they say, if this happens, then it is from God, you know? I trying to apply that same type of mindset to say that it is very unlikely that these people would wait for me to come to them. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of just killing me. And so if they do something that is unlikely, then I notice this from God, because these people ain't like that. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm assuming. But it could be wrong though. But I feel like they just, if that's not the case, if it isn't something where they saying like, if the unlikely thing happens, like remember Moses when he was talking to Korah, he was like, "Yo, if God is on my side, let something new happen we ain't never see. Let the earth open and Korah fall through." You know what I'm saying? So like when I see people make declarations like this, they're saying like, if it is something that is unlikely that is to happens, then I know for sure that that's God's sign. But what you think?
I think it's them still moving by inspiration of the Holy Spirit and God's guidance, because I think it's something that we got to start drawing the line between. Sometimes it's like unbelief and the wisdom. So it's like, okay, for Gideon, we know Gideon the one started to stem from unbelief because God already sent you a sign. God already told you to go do this. And God already sent you a sign, and he sent you another one. You still didn't believe these signs. And I was like, bro, you need to go hard. Like, you need to go get this done. It's like, because like, so you see Gideon was like unbelief when you keep on asking God for signs. But now in this case, we're saying, okay, Jonathan already moved in faith. He was already showing his faith in God. But now I guess to see if God was actually leading him to do this, like, let me not get too rash. Let me just say, if this test happens, so back to your point with Moses, like if something strange happens, then we can notice the sign for us to actually go. But what they say, let me actually read it again. So if they say,
you say if
go for it. It's actually click the wrong
so
button
it's basically saying, if they say we can come up to you, we can come down to you, then we're gonna stay here. But if they say come up to us, then we'll go up there and we'll know that the Lord is with us.
Exactly. So we're saying, guess what? We have this test now, because even why would it make more sense for us to go up to their camp? Because we know it's almost like an ambush mission where they could kill us instantly. So they tell us come up there. They obviously have the advantage. So again, so they tell us come up, even if he's just saying, you know what? If they say come up, God, be ready moving in faith. If they say this, we know the Holy Spirit could be guiding us and we just could go. If they say no, stay where you are, that's the Holy Spirit saying, guys, y'all need to go back to camp, and we're gonna do this as a united accord with the whole army.
Yep.
So where was I? 11. So both men showed themselves to the Philistine outpost. Look, said the Philistines, the Hebrews are crawling out of the holes they were hiding in. The men of the outpost shouted to Jonathan and his armor bearer, come up to us and we'll teach you a lesson. So Jonathan and his armor bearer climbed. Jonathan said to his armor bearer, climb up after me. The Lord has given them into the hand of Israel. Jonathan climbed up using his hands and feet, with his armor bearer right behind him. The Philistines fell before Jonathan and his armor bearer. And his armor bearer followed and killed behind him. In the first attack, Jonathan and his armor bearer killed some 20 men in the area, about half an acre. So half an acre, just for like comparison size, is like, two regular lots.
Yeah.
If you get like two regular lots, I guess for US people, this might be, if you get like two regular lots, you probably about 0.6 acres. It's my civil engineering drawing type things happening. Because a typical acre is probably be like 0.25 acres, 0.3 acres, someplace around there. So, but I'm just saying, like, that ain't really that much area, but you already killed about 20 people in this square footage.
I help 20 on 2.
Exactly.
I know that trip the Philistines out, bro. I know that tripped them out, bro. Because first of all, what appeared to be a death wish for Jonathan, it was like, oh no, this boy he on something different. He like, oh no, he on a mission, and he is succeeding on the mission. And so I was just watching this show this week. It was Middle Ages times, they're just going to war and stuff like that. And I heard somebody refer, it was a battle. And obviously this is fiction. It might be loosely based on a real story, but even the warriors back then were saying the gods are with them. Basically, they don't know about Christianity, like being one God and stuff like that. But it's like, with certain things, bro, where it's the hand of God, bro. It's the hand of God. And so whether God just put confusion all around them 20 men or anything, the fact that the Lord was strengthening Jonathan and his armor bearer just to defeat them, I know that was playing with their heads, bro. Like, I know that was defeating them mentally and all, bro. Because I just like, bro, 20 on 2, bro. Bro, I just like, that's crazy. Now, obviously, ain't nothing too impossible for God. And we see Samson won, kill 1,000 men. Yeah, he was making fun of the 999 under 1,000 man. Like, bro,
Mhm.
none of y'all could get away, bro.
I was running. I ain't
What you
gonna
thought
lie.
was could be different. But I feel like it's like such a power move from God. Like whenever God is with the Israelite army, it is clear that it is clear to the enemies that they ain't just fighting the army. You understand what I'm saying? They fighting a God who controls the elements, bro. When you think about the battle of AI, bro, hornets come around, hail, all type of thing, bro. These things with this Huffius freaking out and scared, bro. Like you don't even have the ambition or like you don't even have the adrenaline to fight, bro, because you're just scared, you know? And we already see that brewing up from now.
Exactly.
So-
Let me just read an excerpt right here real quick from Patriarchs and Prophets. And she says, like, the angels of heaven shielded Jonathan and his attendant, and the angels fought by their side, and the Philistines fell before them.
Hmm.
To just even show like God was like, you know, hey, y'all got the most reinforcement just because of your faith. Like they say faith moves the mountains. And we had to talk about this earlier, and we actually plan on doing an episode about faith, but like faith is so like your faith is so powerful. A lot of people just gotta understand that. Like your faith literally can alter, like have the effects in the physical realm. Anyway.
And you see how fate impacts others though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if Jonathan didn't have faith, Jonathan's faith saved lives. That's a fact. That's a fact. Saved lives of people who probably was bound to die. You know, and I'm not just talking about the Israelites in Saul's camp. It's other Israelites who was around here that was not on the side of the Israelites. You understand? John, and I think about that time when Jesus was when the disciples were supposed to exorcise a man's son who had demons. The demons used to throw him in the fire and the water and stuff, try to kill him. And the disciples they lacked faith. They couldn't exorcise the demon out of the son. And we can see how specifically this time your lack of faith caused somebody else. Like it ain't like a lot of times, like we like to think of our Christian journey or our salvation as something personal, and in a lot of ways it is personal. But to those who do have faith and those who do believe in God and understand, like we have a duty as well to help others. You know what I'm saying? Like, our faith or lack thereof could impact more than just us. When we think about Jacob, Moses, Abraham, all of these people, their families were blessed because of the faith that was shown by their parents or by them, you know. And so right now we can see Jonathan's faith is sufficient to save the entire Israelite army, especially the king, but who save all of those who lack faith, basically.
That's a fact. So in verse 15, the panic struck the whole army, those in the camp and field, and those in the outposts and the raiding parties in the ground shook. It was a panic sent by God. There was a footnote there. I just want to see if that footnote said anything like significant. Saul lookouts in Gibeah in Benjamin saw the army melting away in all directions. Then Saul said to the men who were with him, muster the forces and see who has left us. When they did, it was Jonathan and his armor bearer who were not there. So I wonder, like, what Saul was thinking at this point. Did he think that Jonathan is the one causing this panic? Or was Jonathan the one, or did Jonathan and his armor bearer leave and go back home?
Bro, I actually think that it was evidently clear. All right, so bro, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but watching the show about war and stuff like that, like it's fresh in my mind. Like you around the enemy camp, y'all in probably a couple miles away from each other. Somebody keeping an eye on both sides. Y'all watching each other the whole night, day and night. We have lookouts, just making sure ain't nobody planning an ambush, right? So your people watching Saul's lookouts, for 16, Saul's lookouts, they watching the Philistines, and they watching long enough to decipher what's really going on, because sometimes you can't tell if it's a good thing or a bad thing. We see the Philistines getting disrupted. We don't know who disrupted or what, right? Saul could have assumed God, or he could have assumed someone from his people. Now, he didn't have much, man. I think he had like I can't even remember. It was like, I can't even remember. I think it's like 300 or 600. All right. It was hundreds. And so they do a quick head count, or they do a head count that was thorough enough to realize that only 2 men were missing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in Saul's mind, Saul was uncomfortable because his glory is being jeopardized. Right then and there, I feel like Saul saw that they was winning, and that was quickly identifiable. And he was like, yo, hold on now. I'm the king. There's winning happening, and it's not coming through my orders and my hand.
That's what I think so too, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why are you calling roll when you should be hurry up running to, like, you know, take advantage of this opportunity?
Yep.
I think it's more so like, again, let's see who getting the credit for this, or who will be credited for this. When the soldiers get there and see who's there, like, you know, people gonna talk. You can control the narrative so much in that day and age.
Real. And that's the important thing, bro. In them days, that was important because they make songs, all type of thing they is making.
Exactly.
Just from them war stories.
And then we know that's Saul's character too. So again, so now we see, he said, so Saul said to Isaiah, bring the ark of God. At this time, it was with the Israelites. And like, again, where was the last time we see this? So while Saul was, go for it.
Last time we saw this was with Ahijah's grandfather?
Ancestors, whoever.
It's his ancestors, yeah. With Phinehas and Hophni, bro.
Like,
that's the last time they do this.
Like, this should still be recent history. This is
very recent. This was during Samuel's life, bro. You understand? Samuel's still alive. He was there when this happened already. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like this, y'all ain't too far removed, so y'all know better. And that's the point I was making. What's the first order of business Saul do when he find out that the Israelites winning? The Israelites, as being represented by Jonathan, are defeating the Philistines. The first thing he do, all right, let's bring the Ark of the Covenant. This is my orders to bring the Ark of the Covenant, and we're gonna defeat the Philistines with the Ark of the Covenant there, because last time our ancestors do this, they lose. And I want y'all to show y'all how it's done. Mm-hmm. That's why I call it stupidness, because, bro, you know how much the Israelites had to go through the last time this was taken to battle, and the last time this was taken by the Philistines. And this is
go for it. No, finish your thought.
And this is when Samuel was really established as a leader of all of Israel, because Samuel prayed and they went to battle and they defeated the Philistines. This was after years and after the shame that they had already bore by taking the Ark of the Covenant to battle in the first place against the Philistines.
And like going back to that earlier point, I think this is why it was so important that they established who this priest was. Because now we see Saul falling into the same trap where he's treating the Ark of the Covenant as an idol, as like going up against the Philistines, but it's like as an idol again, because he's saying, let's bring it out. It's like this are like God trophy that we bring out in battle. If we bring this out, we cannot lose, because you know why? This the Ark.
And y'all got to see this.
Exactly.
See what we repping. Like.
And so we see like that's just again, the glory has left Israel, and we see who Saul really is with. The glory is departing from him, because now he don't even recognize or realize who God is. Go for it.
But think about it, bro. When you're reading this verse, right? Like, it don't stick out that they mention this person uncle and all, bro. Like, but how often I can understand you saying son of this person, that way you don't get him confused with another person who might have the same name. All right, cool. Probably didn't have last names back then. All right, cool. But you telling me the man, uncle, his grandfather, all type of thing, and I just like, why they paying so much attention? Like, why they hounding in so hard on this priest? And if you read the story, he only mentioned like in 2 verses, and then that's it. You don't even really hear about him. So why y'all doing giving him such a great introduction? And it's really to provide context on how brazen Saul was. Now, last week, before the podcast, Earl and I had a long conversation, because I was telling him, bro, I feel sad for Saul, bro. It made me sad to see that Saul thought he was doing the right thing. He was doing the wrong thing, but for the right reason in his eyes. And now he got to lose his whole kingdom. And that made me sad, because a lot of times we might offer a sacrifice unto God that is not what God wants, but this is ignorance. Like, we don't know better. Like, we feel like this is we feel like this is the right thing to do, but we might be wrong, you know. And I grapple with that because it kind of tests my faith to say, like, how if I perceive God to be unfair, what do I do from there? Like, how do I react from there? When someone can see it as an honest mistake, why God don't see it as an honest mistake? You know, because I know there are things that I do in my ignorance, and all of us do in our ignorance. But the point of the matter is that does not apply here with the sacrifice, with the Ark of the Covenant. Saul continued to build a case as to show you what his nature actually is. That's why God was so severe with him when he do this one thing, because it is becoming more evident and more evident that Saul knows better, but Saul does what Saul wants to do. Saul is the king, but Saul also feel like he's the God, meaning he's the king of God. Like God will have to live with whatever I do. If God get mad that we take the Ark of the Covenant last time, I taking it this time, and people gonna live with that, but we gonna win, and I can get the glory. That's the type of vibes I get from Saul, and it make me have to kind of walk back all of the feelings that I had for Saul. Had about Saul in the chapter, yeah, because I was weird, right? All the feelings that I had about Saul in the chapter before. Because I was like, man, that's so crazy, bro. Because like that made me uncomfortable, but I have to see, and that was a test of my faith. And that's where I kind of dwindled and didn't see it for what it was, because I'm like, bro, God is righteous and he's slow to anger. If we see God act this way, and it seems like this one time, just already showing us that this a long, deep-rooted thing that God had been grappling with this person, but he just not getting it. And now what God do? God don't just take away, because remember last chapter, Samuel say, you're not gonna have your descendants not gonna have it's not gonna be an everlasting kingdom, basically. But why Samuel ain't just take his crown right then and there and give it to someone else? Because God gave us free will. He gave us opportunity to straighten up, and he gave us opportunity to basically right our wrongs. You know what I'm saying? But it don't seem like Saul leaning in that direction. It seemed like Saul wanted to double and triple and quadruple down in his wrongs, truthfully.
I mean, because the funny thing about it too is, like, to your point, like, why didn't he just, like, you know, take it from him immediately? Again, God's judgment is, you know, essentially final. But he still, like, would leave us in these positions because you still have options to, like, you know, probably repent for your sins to a certain extent, to not go all bad. But he's saying, like, you ain't gonna, like, change God's will to a certain extent. Because let me use Moses for example. After Moses hit the rock, when he should have, you know, speak to it, right? God said, guess what? You and Aaron ain't entering the promised land. But he, like, God, kill him right then and then. Moses around for quite a while. Still able to, you know, have all the Deuteronomy that, you know, this whole my last word to y'all, still watch them going in and thing. But you ain't going in. And I know we so close to one of our main characters, but when it was time for him to build a certain building and he fumbled the bag, you know what? Yeah, you could see all the plans for and everything, but guess what? You ain't building this. And yeah, you can still around, you know, repent for your sins and yada, yada, yada. You know, I appreciate that. But you still got to pay these consequences. But to my point exactly, like, Saul had to, like, double down on his evilness. That was still a choice. Even after the sentence was pronounced, that's still a choice he was making. Because even if I could say, but you know what? I messed up. Sorry, Jonathan, you ain't going to be king no more, but let me still show you how to still be a man of God, even when God hands down a sentence that I might not like.
Well, imagine if I like to personalize the Bible and like relationships with God, because I feel like a lot of the fundamentals of any relationship, we should apply that to God. Imagine if I steal something from you, bro, or I do something that I have no right doing, and you tell me don't do it, and I violated, bro. I shouldn't have done this thing. Let's just stick with steal. Imagine I steal something from you, bro, and you say, bro, honestly, bro, because you steal from me, you can't come in my house no more, bro. Like, never, bro. Right? And imagine, instead of showing you, bro, this was a mistake, because let's say it was truly a mistake. Like, I did, you know, I know what would be the mistake for why I steal from you. Let's just say it's a misunderstanding, right? Let's say I thought it was mine, really, and I just take it not knowing it was yours, right? Instead of apologizing and saying, like, bro, this was sincerely a mistake. Let's say I steal from you again, bro. Let's say I just steal from you again. And again, let's say I do something else stupid to keep poking your buttons, bro. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you can forgive me, but you could just set boundaries between us. I forgive you, but bro, I cannot be an accomplice. I cannot enable you. If I allow you to continue to stay in my house or to be around me, you're going to continue doing that. I don't wish to be in that, and I don't wish you to be in that. You understand? So a lot of times we can look at it as punishments and consequences and stuff like that. But sometimes it's God taking our snare away from us. You understand? Like, you ain't gonna be rewarded for the misgivings or the bad deeds that you do, you know? And but then imagine, like, let's think about our relationship to God. Like, how do you think God feel if you do wrong? No, I do wrong. Let's say the cars do wrong. I sin. I have iniquities. And the Lord punishes me for that, shows me the error of my ways. And I just continue to do it, or I do a different one. How is that fixing the problem? We don't treat humans like that. And if we do, we are willfully being messed up or being mean or being rude to people, you know? But these are certain things that we do to God. Like, if somebody make me mad, I cursing and carrying on. Now I bring in God into it. My beef wasn't even with God. My beef was with the person who cut me off when I was driving. You know what I mean? But now I'm mad and I arcing in rage and I doing things that causes me to sin. Now God have to pay the penalty because of what someone do to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is our relationship to God, and like it should be said that, like, there's no excuse for us sinning. You know what I'm saying? There's no excuse for us to continue to dig ourselves deeper. So even if you're not in a favorable situation, if something is being taken away from you, or if you're being punished by God, it's still an excuse for you to sin. You can't just sit there and say, man, but God take this away anyway. I can just keep going. I can keep going. That don't help you. And that's something that we should know. We should know that, but that don't help you. And I don't know if this was Saul's demeanor, but it seems like Saul was trying to outdo himself over and over and over and just continue to arouse God's anger.
That's a powerful lesson in itself. So we were in verse 19. So while Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult in the Philistine camp increased more and more. So Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Then Saul and all his men assembled and went to battle. They found the Philistines in total confusion, striking each other with their own swords. The Hebrews, who had previously been with the Philistines, had gone up with them to their camp, went over to the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. When the Israelites who had hidden in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were on the run, they joined the battle in hot pursuit. So on that day, the Lord saved Israel, and the battle moved beyond Bethaven. Now the Israelites were in distress that day because Saul had bound the people under an oath, saying, "Cursed be anyone who eats food before evening comes, before I have avenged myself on my enemies." So none of the troops tasted food. So again, we're seeing Saul's character here. He's saying, "Cursed be anyone who eats before I avenge myself on my enemy." Not before we conquer the Philistines before God. Not so God's glory can be shown to the Philistines. Not so like the Philistines go to err their ways for cursing God and having all these idols. No, before I have avenged myself on my enemy. So it's showing the pride in his heart, how he's exalting himself over everything, how he is saying, "I am the king."
So it ain't even about having a safe town, the safety of the town, or, you know, doing what's on behalf of God. This is like a score I gotta settle. This is my reputation, you understand, on the line. So we ain't even fighting really for peace and all of that. We fighting to make my name great. That's exactly the energy that Saul coming with. And now Saul is being kind of like what the Pharisees was doing. You putting commandments on top of commandments, right? Exactly. It ain't no thou shalt not eat. It ain't no when you go to war, fast, you know, in order to please God, X, Y, Z. It's like Saul manipulating y'all, but like he basically using God as a means to control you all to do his will, basically. I want to have y'all in check, bro. I want to make sure y'all do not prioritize even eating. Nothing over avenging me. Like, that's your main concern, but don't even eat. And that's crazy. And he's saying, And hold on. And then he cursing, I will put a curse on you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Cursed be the ones who do that.
And I'm like, this ain't like Jephthah, but to me, this is almost like Jephthah. Like, why all of a sudden we can't eat for a battle you considering yours, not the Lord's? And like, if you feel this way, why don't you just fast yourself? Why must I be under this oath to not eating until we win this battle for you? You ain't God. And again, was this even directed by God? You got a fake priest there. Why you ain't even consulting him about this thing?
Right.
We're just saying, hey guys, guess what? Y'all can't eat until we win. As to add some layer of extra motivation, like, oh yeah, I want to eat, so let me hurry up, get this over and done with. Glory be to Saul. I don't really care because I just want to eat.
But I don't even sound right, bro. I don't even sound right. We literally doing physical exercise, bro. We going to war, bro. This ain't a regular day at the office. We going to war.
Exactly.
What? Now, if God to tell you do it, different story. Different story. Because you know, God's wisdom is far infinite to ours, bro. Like, it's far superior to ours, bro. Like, you just saying stuff, bro. You just saying stuff like, I know. And like, considering the history of like, right, considering the history of kings and God and the stuff with certain empires used to try to make people do in the name of God, or in the name of God, this and that and the third. That's the energy that Saul given. And Saul is the first king. Saul is the first king. So Saul making all of this up as he go. You know what I mean?
But the funny thing about it, like even why it's even more like Jephthah, because remember when Jephthah made that vow, the victory was already won for him, but he made this vow not even knowing that. Yeah. Saul, again, making this vow not even knowing that, bro, God's already on Jonathan's side. Like the victory is already won. So now why are you making this vow, this curse, this oath for no reason? Again, it's like, same thing as like Jephthah, I'm making this oath to you, like I'll sacrifice my daughter if we win. Oh, not my daughter, the first thing that comes with the house. Like again, I have no idea what he's expecting to come with the house. A cow, a horse, I have no idea. Like naturally, only a human being is going to come out of this house. But still,
that was a wild oath, by the way. that's the wildest oath I ever had in my life, bro. That is wild, to this day. Yeah, bro. And you know what? That's so interesting because like, that's why God was adamant on saying like, y'all do not do these spells and divination and things because y'all can get the sacrificing. He said that, bro. He said y'all can get the sacrificing humans, sacrificing your kids and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But Saul is like Jephthah in more ways than one. You know what I'm saying? He making oaths when the battle is already won. And it's an interesting way of trying to keep his oaths, basically.
Exactly. So when they went in the woods, they saw the honey oozing out, yet no one put his hand to his mouth because they feared the oath. Reading in verse 27. But Jonathan had not heard this oath from his father, that his father had bound the people with. So he reached out his hand he reached out the end of the staff that was in his hand, and he dipped it into the honeycomb, raised his hand to his mouth, and his eyes brightened. I must have some good honey. Because ain't no honey that will make me do that.
Never.
Remember when I was growing up, I didn't even really like honey. It's not until I got a little older, my senses get a little bit more refined, and I like honey.
Somebody, this restaurant, they did ran out of syrup and they give us honey without telling us, bro, for pancakes. But that ruined the whole meal, bro. But anyway,
honey good.
Yes, I agree. And that's the only thing I think about. But anyway.
But again, back in the days, you were shaking for my teeth. Wasn't no honey. So he raises his eyes brightened. So in verse 28, one of the soldiers told him, your father bound the army under strict oath, saying, curses be anyone who eats food today. That is why the men are faint. Jonathan said, my father has made a trouble for the country. You see how my eyes brighten when I taste a little of this honey? How much better would it have been if the men had eaten today some of the plunder they took from their enemies? Would not the slaughter of the Philistines have even been greater? That's interesting. We see Jonathan say, yes, so this oath y'all was under hindered God's blessing.
Yep.
Because we could have done so much more today if y'all actually had the strength and the will to fight. And going back to your point, we're doing a lot of physical activity. Y'all need y'all energy and y'all ain't eat. That's like going to sports day without eating and drinking, but you pass out as soon as you finish your race.
Real talk.
So verse 31, the next day the Israelites had struck down the Philistines from Michmash to Ajalon. They were exhausted. They pounced on the plunder and taking sheep, cattle, and calves, they butchered them on the ground and ate them together with the blood. I was literally saying in my head, hopefully y'all cook it, but then someone said,
I saw they could.
They just eat it raw.
Yeah, but remember in I think it's the Levitical laws. It's like you gotta drain all of the blood. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said.
Oh yeah, then someone said to Saul, "Look, the men are sinning against the Lord by eating the meat that has blood in it. You have broken faith," he said. "Roll a large stone over here at once." Then he said, "Go out among the men and tell them, each of you bring me your cattle and your sheep and slaughter them here and eat them. Do not sin against the Lord by eating meat with blood still in it." So again, so everyone brought his ox that night and slaughtered it there. And so then Saul built an altar to the Lord. It was the first time he had done this. And that's so interesting to note. So Saul said, "Let us go down and pursue the Philistines by night and plunder them till dawn. And let us not leave one of them alive. Do whatever seems best to you," they replied. But the priests said, "Let us inquire of God here." So Saul asked God, "Shall I go down and pursue the Philistines? Will you give them into the Israel hands?" But God did not answer him that day. Powerful.
So now watch this, right? Yesterday, Jonathan gone on that mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when Saul see the mission, Saul say, "Wait, we ain't eating again until we destroy them." So we had to go to sleep. We had to wake up the next day, go to war again, fight the whole war, and then we could eat.
Mm-hmm.
So, bro, that's at least a 24-hour fast with multiple battles. At least. It might have been even greater than that, almost 2 days of fighting, you understand, and not eating. When these men get to some food, bro, see, so they had to kill people, right? They had to ignore all of the food that they had. They had to go to sleep hungry, grouchy, head hurting. But it's hard for me to go to sleep. When I fast, it's hard for me to go to sleep. It's hard for me to go to sleep when I fast. Like, I have all the energy in the world, but I don't have no food in my system. Like, I have no, like, like when you eat, you just get a little lethargic. I have none of that in me. You understand? When I fast it. You feel me? And so you got to go through that. You got to go through that a whole next day. That just playing in your mind. So as soon as you all see some food, as soon as they saw food, it's like, bro, I ain't waiting till all this blood drain out. I got to eat now. I saw a lot of them feel like they had to die, bro. Like, a lot of people don't know how much your body could do, like how long you can sustain without food. Like, like when I used to be doing intermittent fasting just for exercise purposes, I tell someone, "Hey, I eat today at 12 p.m. I ain't eating again until tomorrow at 12." And then a lot of people look at me like, "You're not eating tomorrow?" Like, but they'll have a panic attack, bro. You gotta eat. Like, they'll freak right out because like the concept of not eating is foreign to a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? But it's different when you have to fast, not by choice. So you weren't even mentally prepared. Like, you wouldn't even get, like, because me, like, I just have to psych myself into that, bro. Like, and a lot of times I fast because I had overeaten before. So I like, bro, you got to make this back up. You already exceed your calories, so you got to make that back up. But it's a difference when you wake up today, you was might have say, "Man, I can eat at 12, but then 12 come around and like, yeah, we ain't eating no more until? What you mean until, bro? We fasted indefinitely.
What is this until?
Bro, what you mean until, bro? Give me a time frame, bro, because like you give me something that's so variable, bro. Like, bro, like suppose they beat us. You know what I mean? What you mean? We just stop?
So we not only fasting, but about to actually do a very strenuous activity, which is pursuing and killing people. And do that.
Right. And so I completely understand why they did it, but it's no excuse for sin. You understand what I'm saying? It's no excuse for that. However, Saul is responsible for all of this, bro. You make it hard. You ensnared your men. You understand what I'm saying? You put a stumbling block in their way for them to fall. You know what I mean? You make it easy for them to fall and sin against God. And so now what you have to do something that you never do, bro. You realize they sin, right? And you realize use the cause. So now you gotta build an altar and like, hey guys, man, let's atone for these sins. Let's make it right. You know what I mean? And so you saying, after all, it's a lot going on, bro. It's a lot going on. Jonathan, by the grace of God, Jonathan had God with him. Jonathan gone and defeat a battle. We go on, we defeat, we go on to sleep, we come back, we fight again. We have all this plunder, these people sinning against God. But what on Saul's mind, the heaviest, bro? Let's continue. Let's continue to go and kill them. You know what I mean? And everybody's saying, bro, do whatever is good to you. You see what I say? Mm-hmm. And the priest had to interject and be like, yo, let's ask God, bro, because we already doing a lot. And I feel like that's one of them things where it's like, that was a saving grace for the priests, that they had God as their trump card to say, hey, but he could stop, he could relax if we bring up God. Because otherwise he could keep working us to the bone. And he ain't no telling what other oath he could want us to. Nobody eat for a week, you know what I mean? Nobody sleep until, you see what I'm saying? Like, but it might not be no bounds to his selfish ambition. So they asked God, and God was like, bro, I ain't condoning this, bro. I am not enabling you. This ain't have nothing to do with me. Like, you making it not about me. You making it about you, and I'm not condoning that. You know, but when Jonathan was communicating with God, we'll know if they say come up to them, then this God giving us away. And what they do, they respond. You know, it's a clear contrast here.
Definitely. I tell you, like, this whole chapter just contrasts the faithfulness of Jonathan and how God working, and then the absence of God's presence from Saul, and how that leads to his rashness and just lost, like a ship without a setting, just wandering the seas aimlessly.
Yeah, Saul is impulsive.
So in verse 38, Saul therefore said, "Come here, all you who are leaders of the army, and let us find out what sin has been committed today." So we see God ain't answering him. So he's saying, okay, you know what? I'm gonna figure this out myself.
Someone sinned. That's why God didn't answer.
Clearly.
That's what he said.
Clearly. As surely as the Lord who rescues Israel lives, even if the guilt lies with my son Jonathan, he must die. But none of them said a word. So again, we see what, like Jephthah, saying something so rash and so impulsive without thinking, because in your head you're like, surely it ain't gonna be Jonathan. And you know, this reminds me of like when Jacob was like, yo, even if Rachel got it, she could die. Right? Not knowing that she's the one.
Not even knowing who got
exactly
the idol. Yeah.
And so imagine, I just imagine the people like the leads of the army. They say, even Jonathan, go.
Go. I ain't saying nothing.
You can tell them.
I ain't saying nothing.
Well, we can see how this one plays out. So in verse 40, Saul said to all the Israelites, "You stand over there. I and Jonathan, my son, will stand over here. Do what seems best to you," they replied.
Boy, I ain't getting in that. I ain't getting it. Ain't nobody. See, but you can see you're on a bloodlust, bro. Like, you can see the type of bag with Saul in, where ain't nobody even interject, but the only people interject, they say, let's consult God. That's the only thing. Everything else is, yes, sir, let's do whatever. If it's good with you, if you like it, I love it. You know what I mean? That's what everyone's saying.
If this works for you, sure. We know it ain't us. So where was I now? In verse 41, then Saul prayed to the Lord, the God of Israel, "Why have you not answered your servant today? If the fault is in me or my son Jonathan, respond with Aram. But if the fault is with the men of Israel are at fault, respond with something." Too much M's in that word for me. Thummim. Jonathan and Saul were taken by lot. And then the men were cleared. Saul said, "Cast a lot between me and Jonathan, my son." And Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, "Tell me what you have done." So it's just interesting that since they couldn't really decipher the voice of God, well, Saul couldn't, they essentially cast lots to see. Okay, let's figure this out by casting lots. Anyway.
But it's so interesting because, like, it's like that was a successful method of hearing from God. It's like they cast lots and they keep landing on the Benjamite tribe and they land on Saul. You know what I mean? Like the lots seemed like it was pretty accurate. Now, obviously, we know God was behind that, but that's interesting how like it worked. You know what I mean? Like, oh, God sanctioned that, and he was communicating through that.
Mm-hmm. So Jonathan said to him, I tasted a little honey at the end of my staff, and now I must die. I know that rock, Saul.
Mm-hmm.
Saul said, may God deal with me, be it ever so verily, if you do not die, Jonathan.
And
Go for
that's
it.
where he is not like Jephthah. That's
'Cause
where he's
Jephthah
not
was-
like Jephthah.
Jephthah was so heartbroken.
Remorseful. Yeah.
And again, it shows Saul's true character now, because now he's saying, guess what? This glory got to be with me. And if you got me looking bad in front of everybody, you too will have to die. And
Exactly.
we're so close to the story of this next guy. I can't even say, but so much things start to make sense now when you actually come back and read the context of the whole relationship now.
Bro, I just was saying, because I never realized how self-centered Saul really was, right? So when they come back from war and people singing about another king or another warrior and not singing about him, I realized why that hurt him so bad. Like this, bro, this honestly blowing my mind, because like it makes so much sense why Saul just was spiraling, bro. He was just spiraling, because everything had to be his way. And when things ain't going his way, there's no limit to what he would do to try to get things back, to control this narrative. So now I decree that nobody should eat, right? Somebody eat. I make a oath to God, like cursing the person who eat, right? And now God showing me somebody eat. And now he can't even turn around and say, wow, that's crazy. He can't even turn around and say, number one, Jonathan didn't know he wasn't around when you made this oath. So probably Jonathan wasn't bound by this oath because he literally was not even there when you made this oath. You know what I'm saying? You ain't consider that at all. You saying, I say this and I stick into that. You know what I mean? And this ain't even one of them. I don't think it's one of them things where it's like, oh, the man gonna look at me as weak if I hold back on my oath or whatever. He like, no, my pride would be hurt if I don't show these people that I mean what I say. And, you know, and I have this power and authority. And he telling his son, bro, he swear to God just now. He's like, bro, may God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if you don't die.
Man, and what's so interesting too, again, so now you're saying the reason why, and let me not even steal lay thunder, because the man as Saul said to him, should Jonathan die? He who has brought about this great deliverance in Israel? Never. Now these people talking to the king now.
Now they're like, you're going too far now, bro.
And they're saying, guess what? As surely as the Lord lives, not a hair on his head will fall to the ground. For he did this today with God's help. The man rescued Jonathan and he was not put to death. So we see Saul was going to kill his own son. The people say, guess what? We know God with him. We know everything that happened today. God delivered Israel through him. Not you. And you talking about you could put him to death? Stop talking fool. They say, surely it's God. Like, remember, it really paints the contrast here again. We seeing Saul swearing by God. They saying, guess what? And people saying, we ain't even gonna swear, but surely as God live. He ain't nothing happening to Jonathan. Not today. You gotta try again some other time. So we see then Saul stopped pursuing the Philistines and they withdrew to their own land. After Saul assumed rule. After Saul had assumed rule, like, what's going on? After Saul had assumed rule over Israel, he fought against their enemies on every side: Moab, the Ammonites, Edom, the kings of Zobah, and the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he inflicted punishment on them. He fought valiantly and defeated the Amalekites, delivering Israel from the hands of those who had plundered them. Saul's sons were Jonathan, Ishvi, Malchi-Shua. The name of his older daughter was Merab, and the younger daughter, and that of the younger was Michal. His wife's name was Ahinoam, daughter of Ahimaaz. The name of the commander of Saul's army was Abner, son of Ner, and Ner was Saul's uncle. Saul's father was Kish, and Abner's father, Ner, were sons of Abiel. all the days of Saul, there was bitter war with the Philistines. And whenever Saul saw the mighty or brave man, he took him into his service. And this ends Samuel 14. Samuel chapter 14. A lot happened in this chapter.
Yeah, this was a longer chapter, and it didn't even occur to me that Saul and Abner was cousins.
Yeah,
very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, bro, it's a distinct contrast between Saul and Jonathan. And at the climax of the story, it's Saul versus Jonathan in figuring out who sinned, basically, as it was told by God. So God pointed out it was Jonathan. But that kind of make me nervous because I'm like, Saul was out of pocket for making that oath. You understand what I'm saying? Jonathan, he did not knowingly sin. He did not knowingly sin, And then guess what? It don't even say that he ate no more after that. So like after they tell him, he was like, bro, that's a stupid oath he make, bro. We could have gone harder if we was, filled. But it didn't say that he continued eating or none of that. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm thinking like, why, when they cast lot, why it don't go to Saul? Because Saul is the one who being selfish and who bring the Ark of the Covenant and like this chapter showing all of the things that Saul did wrong. You understand what I'm saying? And so it also showing that all the things Jonathan did right. And now we have this one thing where it's like, was it right for Jonathan to eat that or not? But he had no clue. That was right. Like he literally did not know. So it was just a regular day for Jonathan, right? But the result ends up being that all of the people who was quiet and allowing Saul to freak out as much as he's freaking out, they say, bro, as surely as the Lord lives, Jonathan ain't gonna die. So guess what, bro? You making oaths in God's name, but you don't even have the authority to accomplish the oaths or the curses that you saying, because God ain't sanctioning that. He's saying, as surely as the Lord lives, whoever eats will be cursed. As surely as the Lord lives, whoever, Jonathan will die today. Be it, let the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely if he don't. And the people respond by saying, bro, as surely as the Lord lives, Jonathan will not die, bro. This ain't like everything that was in your control, bro. You was managing and you was exercising your control. But this right here ain't in your control. And for all those who don't know, Jonathan surely lived beyond that day. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. This has me thinking, man. Like, again, we know Israel wasn't really set up to have an earthly king if they had just stayed faithful to God and trust God. But now that you do have an earthly king and you're starting to see his characteristics and you're starting to see that this man is willing to sacrifice his own son, sacrifice almost sounds too kind. He was willing to murder his own son for a foolish rod that he created. What are you starting to think about this king? Are you starting to see the error of your own ways now? Because we knew what we had. Remember, just was 2 chapters ago, Samuel made everyone come again and say, if I have done you guys any wrong as your high priest, as your prophet, as your judge, let me know. Let me know. What have I done you guys wrong? Like, let's have this witness between us because y'all know I didn't do anything wrong. But y'all still want this earthly king. Now that you guys have him, it's what y'all asked for after hearing all the consequences of having this. Do you wish you could take it back? Because now you're seeing what this really getting into. Like, now you're seeing what you're really getting into. Off of impulse, I can't eat until we finish this battle. To your point, when's the battle going to finish? Off of impulse, when your son was bringing us to deliver, helping us win this battle, because we were sitting under this pomegranate tree. Who even knows if the actual rest of the army where they was chilling? Because do you just know Saul and the priests, who we don't know, wicked, chilling under this pomegranate tree? Who knows? The rest of the army might just been chilling in the fields or something, waiting. But your son, who was directed by God, went out in faith and brought us this delivery, but you're willing to kill him after that because of your foolish deed? I'm just thinking they're having some misgivings, and I'm just wondering about us, like some of the things like we might ask for that probably ain't in our best interest. And when we get it, we like, man, this ain't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe I should have waited Maybe I should exercise some more patience. Maybe I should have consulted God, especially if it was an impulse decision. So no, I definitely have been in those predicaments.
Yeah, and we could see Saul actually. He's seeing his true character, and it begs the question: like, is Saul among the prophets? Like, that's the question. Like, that actually made me laugh, bro. And I love the book of Samuel, bro. Like, this book is so interesting. This is just a flavorful book for me. This reminds me of Genesis, just the different stories that's happening. You know what I mean? And I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke, bro. When people say it's Saul among the prophets, I thought that was, like when we say is water wet? You know what I'm saying? Is the sky blue? Like a rhetorical question. Like, that's kind of funny. Like when someone asks you, but they was really asking, is Saul among the prophets? Because you talking about a man who was 30 when he became king. Who knows how long had passed since his kingdom was established, but he had never built an altar. He had never once tried to communicate with God. He had never once tried to orchestrate his sins being atoned. What was his relationship with God like at all? You know what I mean? And it's a weird predicament because Saul was the best fit for a king. We know that for a fact. Excuse me. And so,
the funny thing about it, like, I know, just hold your point, right? But it's like, Kelly Messina was the best fit with the king. He was the best fit with the people thought a king should be. And that's an important point to figure out too, because now we're seeing and I know we're trying to wrap up, right? So forgive me. But like now we're seeing, because remember what Samuel told Saul, now I'm going to choose a king who is after my own heart.
So you saying the people get theirs.
Exactly.
But now it's time for the type. All right. And that's a powerful point because I never thought about that. So God give them exactly what they asked for.
Exactly.
And now y'all get to live in and experience it, right? But now that y'all already experienced with the wrong way to do it, I can show y'all a king after God's heart. That's amazing. I never even think about that. You understand what I say? I never consider that. However, we get to see how Saul, in the world of all of us having tests and choices, we can see how Saul continues to make the wrong choices. And we also see the motive behind Saul. Saul is not among the prophets. Saul, as a matter of fact, he rather align himself with priests who could continue ungodly trends that caused their family line to be cursed and killed. These are the type of people you instructing to do the same thing. You instructing people who essentially don't know no better. You picking people who ain't gonna hold you accountable. Samuel just hold you accountable last chapter. We don't even hear from Samuel. Samuel, where is Samuel? Like, did you send him away? Do you talk to him? What's going on? You know what I mean? So basically, it's a distinct difference between the faith of Jonathan and the lack of faith of Saul. Here we see one person who's just on a mission by themselves because they know it's only God that we need to be victorious, and another person who wanted to take things into their own hand and wanted to take the glory for themselves.
Saul's appetite for honor is becoming more and more apparent. It was through Jonathan's faith in God that they waged war against the Philistines. But as soon as Saul found out, he sought to take the glory for himself. Saul, once intimidated by the prospect of becoming king, has become more arrogant than ever. And in the quest to attain more and more power, he disobeyed and disconnected himself from the power source. But we'll talk more about Saul's disobedience on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by Ayana Albertson-Gay, as well as your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakaz Gay. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.